So what makes a monster? Are they good animals gone bad, or the result of our overactive imaginations? We're counting down the top 10 most extreme monster myths in the natural world and revealing the science behind the fiction of the animals we love to hate. Discover that the only thing to fear is fear itself when monsters are taken to the most extreme.
Earth is a planet of extremes. Extreme places. And extreme animals. But some animals are more extreme than others. Join us as we count down to find the most unusual and the most extraordinary on Animal Planet's The Most Extreme. Number 10.
Are you scared of things that go bump in the night? Well, you're not alone. Monsters are hiding in the dark recesses of everyone's psyche. As soon as people step out of their comfort zone and explore strange new worlds, our imaginations are all too eager to invent monstrous creatures. Some psychologists believe that humans create monsters as a tool to help us visualize and confront our deepest fears. Perhaps that's why we're so willing to believe the most unlikely stories about animals that scare us. After all, if we're prepared to believe that there's a monster under the bed, then surely something truly awful must be living beneath the streets of New York City. Crawling out of the sewer and into number 10 in the countdown is the alligator. It became a monstrous urban legend thanks to stories of unwanted baby pet alligators being flushed into the sewer system. People wanted to believe that they grew into giants that fed on unwary sanitation workers. It's a great story, but it isn't true. All crocodilians, alligators, and their crocodile cousins prefer swamps to sewers. A New York sewer in winter is just too chilly for these cold-blooded reptiles. So while the citizens of New York City may be safe from giant alligators in their sewers, the truth about these armor-plated monsters is almost as frightening as any myth. With jaws that can slam shut with an estimated bite strength of 3,000 pounds per square inch, and the ability to hold their breath for up to an hour, all crocodilians are very, very scary. Imagine an animal that can be 3 times longer and 10 times heavier than the average man, yet it can swim undetected right in front of you. It's no wonder they've crawled out of our nightmares and into the movies. Strangely enough, a human figure with really big jaws, bad breath, and a bad attitude was not just a character in a B movie, but a god. This is Sobek. 4,000 years ago, the ancient Egyptians worshipped him as a god. They believed that his sweat created the river Nile, which is why its waters were full of his armor-plated disciples. So to keep Sobek and his crocodiles happy, the Egyptians built special temples. Here, crocodiles were covered in jewels and hand-fed by temple attendants. Having lived alongside crocodiles for thousands of years, Egyptians both respected and feared their awesome power. But nothing could prepare early Europeans for such a man-eating monster. Travelers to the Middle East returned home with stories of an animal with terrifying teeth, scaly skin, and great glowing eyes. It wouldn't take much imagination for illustrators to turn it into a different kind of mythical beast. So when the patron saint of England fought his dragon, was St. George actually taking on a crocodile? Even without wings and fiery breath, crocodiles are still daunting creatures. But in Australia's Northern Territory, people have discovered that tourist dollars are an excellent reason to once again turn this magnificent monster into a revered animal. So while they may not terrorize the sewers of New York, crocodiles and their cousins still grab our imagination, just like our next monstrous contender.
Number 9.
When the first Europeans ventured into the jungles of South America, they returned with stories of an enormous animal called the Matora, or bull eater. This giant man-eating monster was said to be more than 80 feet long and could swallow you in a single gulp. It's no wonder that stories of the bone-crushing power of these gigantic serpents took a real stranglehold on our imaginations. But are there really snakes that could swallow a human? Just how far has the truth been stretched? Travel down the Amazon today, and you could meet a real-life giant. Sliding in to number 9 in the countdown is the Anaconda. It may not be as long as the serpents of legend, but nearly 30 feet of Anaconda is the heaviest snake in the world. Weighing as much as 4 men, its massively muscled body can be almost twice the circumference of an average man's thigh. Capable of holding its breath underwater for more than 10 minutes, this is a monster that preys on other monsters. No wonder we're scared of an animal that can take on a caiman and win. Giant constrictors can kill humans, but we're seldom on the menu because snakes have to swallow their food whole. Our shoulders would make us more than a mouthful for even the biggest anaconda. The Anaconda is number 9 in the countdown because we're prepared to believe any scary story about a snake in the grass. Snakes have been getting bad press right from day one. Just look at what the Bible says happened in the Garden of Eden. When the devil came along, he was disguised as a serpent. He tempted Eve to taste the forbidden fruit, and we got kicked out of Eden. Even today, some people use snakes to confront the demon within. The Gospel according to Mark suggests that if the faithful pick up snakes or drink any poison, they'll not be harmed. Today, in parts of America, fundamentalist snake handlers take this suggestion literally. If their faith is strong, then they won't be bitten by venomous snakes. But dancing with the devil can be deadly. After all, some snakes can kill us. But we have to shed the notion that everything that slithers is sinister. The truth is, only about 10% of snakes in the world are venomous. But because most people can't tell the difference, we've always been ready to believe the worst of this much maligned monster.
number 8.
The next contender in our monstrous countdown has long been shrouded in a web of superstition and fear. The animal crawling in to number 8 could have come straight from your worst nightmare. For many people, all spiders are scary, no matter how big they are. And thanks to Hollywood special effects, some spiders really are larger than life. The biggest and hairiest spiders in the world are the tarantulas. One of these monsters is enough to scare anyone a whole bunch. There's nothing subtle about a tarantula. While other spiders may build intricate webs, the tarantula hunts using nothing more than its size and strength. But what happens when it meets the deadliest snake in South America? Just one bite from a fertilance contains enough venom to kill 2 humans. The giant spider overpowers its prey with sheer force. Then, it uses its half-inch fangs to inject paralyzing venom and powerful digestive enzymes that liquefy the snake's insides. No wonder some people are arachnophobic. The tarantula is number 8 in the countdown because while its bite can kill a snake, for most humans, it's no more toxic than a bee sting. You'll get a fright, but you won't die. So why are we scared of these super-sized spiders? Well, tarantulas can blame bananas for a lot of their bad press. Some species like to hunt and hide in banana trees. So, when bunches were boxed up and shipped from South America, the fearsome spiders were also exported around the world. It's a rare occurrence today, but in the days before imported goods were fumigated, a stowaway tarantula could give an unwary banana buyer the fright of his life. There are more than 800 species of tarantula in the world. The name is given to any large hairy spider, but originally came from the town of Taranto in southern Italy, where people once made a real song and dance about a spider. During the Middle Ages, strange things happened to people bitten by a wolf spider the locals called a tarantula. The victim was almost always a woman who would fall into a melancholic trance. The only way to flush the venom from her body was to dance the tarantella. This dance was a frenzy of intense sensual rhythms that lasted for hours, supposedly to sweat out the poison. But was the spider to blame for this medieval outbreak of Saturday night feverishness? In 1795, Oliver Goldsmith gamely sought to find out by letting the Taranto tarantula take a bite out of his servant. Goldsmith discovered the poison was only itchy. There were no other symptoms. Back in the Middle Ages, the dancers weren't poisoned. The tarantula just gave them a reason to do some dirty dancing. The tarantula may have a nifty two-step, but it's found it's impossible to dance its way out of a really bad reputation. And that's why this big hairy spider is number 8 in the countdown. Having this many legs means you're always going to step on somebody's toes.
Number 7.
There's only one contender in our monstrous countdown capable of completely clearing a beach. Shark has starred in so many movies that some people are still afraid to go into the water. But did Hollywood go overboard making sharks out to be monsters? More than half the species of shark are actually less than 3 feet long. But the image fixed in the popular imagination is the gaping mouth of the always hungry, always hunting great white shark. Even from behind the safety of a steel mesh cage, it's unnerving coming face to face with 7 rows of 56 teeth. In jaws with enough muscle to generate a bite estimated at 2,000 pounds per square inch. Yet on average, sharks attack about 100 humans around the world each year, and only about 10 of these are fatal. Statistically, the chances of you becoming shark food are nearly 300 million to 1. You're actually much more at risk from your food. The chances are just 3 million to 1 that you'll die of food poisoning. So why are we afraid of sharks and not snacks? Obviously, Hollywood producers are less likely to make a summer blockbuster about botulism. To find out what makes a good movie monster, you need to visit Bob Burns in Burbank, California. This may look like just any other house, but it holds a dark secret. Inside this house are monsters. Lots of monsters. Bob Burns has hundreds of movie monsters in his basement. It's one of the world's largest private collections of movie props, a treasure trove of sci-fi, horror, and fantasy film artifacts. And Bob knows what makes a good monster.
I think a scary monster is more of a thing you don't see than you see. I mean, like glimpses of something rather than just the monster storming around and you see him all the time. It's the sense of the unknown. You don't know what it is. It's something in the shadows. Jaws scared me a lot. You see something in the shadows of the water and all of a sudden there's with teeth looking at you. That's the type of thing that scares me.
That's the kind of thing that scares most people. But are sharks really as bad as their reputation suggests? Surprisingly, most people survive encounters with great white sharks. Most of the time, they'll take only one bite, then spit us out because we're too bony. They prefer the high-fat content of a meal of seal blubber. The trouble is that when you're the size of a great white shark, one bite can make a big hole in a human. But then, it's not the only monster in the countdown with awesome strength.
Number 6.
Most vehicles have many features that make them safer to drive. But no manufacturer counted on the strength of the animal breaking in to number 6 in the countdown. Bears can smell the faintest whiff of food, and they'll follow their nose even if it means tearing a car apart for nothing more rewarding than a crushed soda can and an empty bag of chips. In 1 year at Yosemite National Park, bears broke into almost 1,000 cars and caused more than $500,000 worth of damage in their search for food. But who's gonna argue with a hungry bear? In the last 100 years, bears have been responsible for more than 130 human fatalities in North America alone. No wonder ancient warriors envied the strength of the bear. The Vikings believed that they became invincible in battle if they wore a specially treated bearskin shirt. The warrior would gain the strength of the bear. The Vikings in their bear shirts, or bear sarks as they were called, fought in a fearless frenzy. It's from these big hairy creatures, the bear sarkers, that we got the word berserk. For most people, the chances of being bothered by any bear, let alone a berserk bear, are extraordinarily small. In fact, the odds of being killed by a bear have been calculated at just 1 in 1.2 million. Compare those odds to your chances of being killed or seriously injured by a car. That's only 1 in 88. Even taking a bath is more dangerous. A bathtub-related fatality is just a 1 in 11,000 possibility. Somehow, the more than 1 in a million chance of being killed by a bear feels a little safer, given that the odds of being struck by lightning are only 1 in 39,000. Bears are number 6 in the countdown because we think these enormous carnivores are always out to get us. But the truth is that bears are mostly vegetarian. They're the least carnivorous of all the meat-eating mammals. These supposedly savage killers are happier hunting plants and even bugs than hunting us. So perhaps these bad news bears are really not so bad after all.
Number 5.
To find the next contender in our countdown of monstrous animals, we have to venture into the unknown. From out of this high-pressure world of near-freezing darkness have come tales of sea monsters that have scared sailors for centuries. Legends tell of enormous nightmare creatures that pull ships down to a watery grave. While tentacled monsters only terrorize our cities in B-movies, a real giant has emerged from beneath the seas surrounding Antarctica. This is a colossal squid. It's easy to see how it got its name, because this is only a 17-foot-long teenager. It's thought that fully grown, a colossal squid could be up to 40 feet long, making it the largest squid in the world. It has 8 powerful arms and 2 tentacles studded with vicious hooks and suckers. The hooks are unique weapons, able to rotate to grasp slippery prey. The squid's mouth is a terrifying beak that slashes flesh like a giant wire cutter. This is truly a creature from our darkest imagination. And like any good monster, we make up stories about it. That's because a colossal squid has never been seen alive in the wild. So we can only imagine what it's really like in the living flesh. We can guess that like all squid, they can slowly move by gently undulating their fins. But these animals are also jet-propelled killers. By sucking water in and then shooting it out of their body at high pressure, they can achieve top speed in a fraction of a second. We can also get an idea of how they hunt by watching their smaller cousins in action. The 2 long tentacles are fired to grab the prey, and then the 8 arms pull their meal toward that slashing beak. It's easy to see why people think that a giant squid could be a terrifying monster. So if giant sea monsters can be found living off the coast of Antarctica, does that mean they exist elsewhere? In the waters near the Norwegian village of Seljord, people have been spotting a sea serpent nicknamed Selma, including student-teacher Kari Akri.
I saw 3 of them 5 years ago. One right out there, one right down here, and one this way. Perhaps it was a mother and 2 children.
Jan Sundberg from the Oceanographic Institute of Bergen has set up the world's first sea serpent trap to catch the elusive beast.
We are trying to catch a baby serpent because we think it's a whole family in the lake.
As yet, the secret of Selma and her babies haven't managed to swim into the trap and have eluded the scientists' sonar. Selma and her more infamous cousin from Loch Ness remain mysteries of the deep. But then so are giant squid, because we know so little about them. The colossal squid is number 5 in the countdown because in reality, it hunts in waters so deep and so cold that there's virtually no chance of those mighty tentacles ever latching onto us. This is one sea monster that will only terrify us in our dreams.
Number 4.
The first European travelers to stagger out of the jungles of equatorial Africa brought back terrifying tales of a hellish dream creature, a hideous being half man, half beast. According to legend, these awful ogres could beat a man to death with a single swipe of their fists. It wasn't until 1847 that Dr. Thomas Savage confirmed the existence of a seemingly ferocious giant primate called the gorilla. These great apes have roared their way into number 4 in the countdown because they have scared both African explorers and the world's moviegoers for more than a century. King Kong was billed as the 8th wonder of the world back in 1933. This gigantic ape became Hollywood's best box office horror. Back then, it was easier to believe in the idea of a giant savage ape. Today, we know the gorilla's reputation was really blown out of proportion. Even the mighty King Kong has been knocked down to size. He lives in the basement of collector of monster movie memorabilia, Bob Burns.
He's a little thinner now than when you originally saw him because all of the skin and everything and the foam rubber and hair has been taken off of him because it started to rot and it was actually messing the whole thing up, so we had to clean him up a bit. But this is the actual maquette animation puppet here for Kong. Like they would move this 1 frame at a time, click it, move it again, 1 frame at a time, maybe start to close the mouth, close it again. I mean, it took hours and hours and days to shoot this. Same thing with the fingers, move the finger. I think King Kong, probably to me, is the best monster ever. I mean, he's a real ape, for one thing, so it's real. It's not a fictitious creature. Gorillas are real, you know. And when I was a kid and saw it just at the right time, it really was scary to me. And a 40-foot ape is even scarier. It can tear down buildings and eat people and all this kind of stuff. But I would have to say that if I had to pick one monster of every monster I have, and I love them all for all different reasons, it would have to be King Kong.
But then, it's not hard to love a gorilla. These days, instead of being scared of gorillas, we go ape over them. We've discovered that the great ape that once terrorized New York City is in reality a gentle vegetarian. Gorillas are number 4 in the countdown because once we stopped making them up as monsters and spent a little quality time with one of our closest relatives in the animal kingdom, we discovered that gorillas aren't so terrifying after all. It seems this amiable ape would rather live and let live than hang around on buildings swatting planes.
Number 3.
Come in. Come closer. Closer. That's right. I'm Vincent Price. You'll be just as safe in this house of fear as any of the other 5 victims murdered by the bat.
The bat screams into number 3 in our countdown of misunderstood monsters. Because of centuries of myth and superstition, most people think that when a bat flies past your head, it's trying to attack you. Well, not according to bat researcher Gary McCracken.
This is what I think is really happening. The bats are chasing insects. The insects are up over the people's heads. People are scaring insects up, and the bats are swooping and diving and flying erratically to catch the insects. The people think they're being attacked by the bats.
Most bats are harmless. They'd rather eat insects or fruit than us. But our imaginations turn these masters of the night into terrifying monsters. There are nearly 1,000 species of bat in the world, but only 3 hunger for our blood. They're the notorious vampire bats. Everybody's a little chicken about vampire bats. They're about the same size as a mouse and drink a couple of tablespoons of blood at each meal. That means that your average colony of 100 vampire bats could, in 1 year, drain all the blood out of 14,000 chickens. Even so, vampire bats are nowhere near as bloodthirsty as their mythical namesake. Ever since Bram Stoker wrote Dracula in 1897, we've been batty for vampires. But as the undead know all too well, blood isn't very nutritious. Which is why vampire bats have to drink up to their own weight in blood every day. That means Dracula would have to drink about 17 sticky gallons daily, nearly a bathtub full of blood. Throwing a dinner party would be a real pain in the neck, because the human body only contains about 10 pints of blood. That means Dracula would have to put the bite on more than a dozen friends for dinner every night. Thanks to vampire legend, people think all bats are dangerous. And because they're nocturnal, we never get to see the good things they do, like pollinating plants. Just like our next contender, it's one monster that's been bitten by a lot of bad press.
Number 2.
Imagine a monster that you can't see and you can't hear. But it needs only seconds to skin you alive. This monster is said to be able to turn an animal the size of a cow into a pile of bones in just 5 minutes. Early explorers just couldn't believe their eyes. So just imagine what this monster could do to humans. Pirana are a little fish with a big reputation. They're number 2 in the countdown because their ferocity is world-renowned. There's no doubt that piranha teeth really are razor sharp. That's why some South American Indian tribes use them as razor blades. But is their bite as bad as their reputation? Surely anything that sets foot in piranha-infested waters would be instantly attacked. But these capybara, the world's largest rodents, are quite safe. Contrary to popular opinion, piranha are mostly scavengers that prefer cold meat to warm blood. Pirana can thank American President Teddy Roosevelt for their terrible reputation. While exploring the Amazon in 1913, Roosevelt's hosts cordoned off a stretch of river and stocked it with thousands of hungry piranha. When an animal was thrown into the water, the starving fish went wild. Roosevelt was duly impressed and called the piranha the most ferocious fish in the world. And so a monster myth was spawned. But these are not the only little monsters that take part in a feeding frenzy. Kids across America go wild for candy on Halloween. According to legend, on the 31st of October, ghosts and spirits have the power to roam the world. In the United States, 82% of children take part in Halloween festivities. And a surprising 67% of adults also join in the fun. Making monsters is a booming business. Each year, U.S. consumers spend up to $1.5 billion on costumes alone. A further $2.5 billion are spent on other Halloween paraphernalia. And on average, every family spends about $16 on pumpkins. Although very few try to carve them underwater. Every year across North America, sport divers compete in underwater pumpkin carving competitions. Some take it very seriously and have worked on pumpkins weighing about half a ton. It's just a shame that nobody tries carving in waters infested with piranha. A pumpkin meal would be just the thing for a peckish piranha. That's because most of the 20 species of piranha found in the Amazon prefer fruit to flesh. It's hard to imagine a vegetarian piranha being much of a monster. And that's why the piranha is number 2 in the countdown. There's something more than a little fishy about their fiendish reputation.
We've seen the 9 contenders. They've all got terrifying reputations. There's only one animal that's more misunderstood. Number 1.
When it comes to making monsters, You never let the facts get in the way of a good story, especially when it's an animal that's been preying on our mind for generations. The most misunderstood monster in the countdown is the big, bad wolf. So are the stories of a savage and bloodthirsty killer true? There's no doubt that the wolf's big eyes, big nose, and very big teeth really are all the better to eat you with. After all, the wolf is a hunter that can easily run twice as fast as any human, and they're strong enough to bring down animals that weigh as much as 5 men. But because we've been persecuting the wolf for centuries, the animal that scared generations of people now has a lot more to be scared of from us. And that's why the wolf is the most misunderstood monster in the countdown. We're still frightened of them, even though there has never been a documented case of a healthy wild wolf killing a human in North America. So why are we still so afraid of the big bad wolf? Once again, Hollywood hasn't helped. Countless horror movies have been inspired by stories about the half-man, half-wolf that feeds on human flesh. We might laugh at the idea of a werewolf today. But back in the Middle Ages, there was a genuine horror of the wolfman. People really believed in the terrifying transformation of man into wolf. And what's really scary is just how many werewolves were running around the place. In France alone during the 16th century, documents show that officers of the church locked up more than 30,000 werewolves. Sometimes it took a little encouragement to get them to confess, but back then, you didn't need much evidence to condemn both humans and wolves to a horrible death. Today, some scientists have suggested so-called werewolves could have been suffering from rabies, the symptoms of which include a dislike of bright light and muscular spasms that result in incredible strength and aggression. Other theories suggest that foods and potions could have made people think they had turned into wolves. Were werewolves just people suffering drug-induced hallucinations? Certainly some toxins can make people foam at the mouth and contort their faces into wolf-like expressions. Back in the Middle Ages, people in isolated villages lived in a climate of fear and superstition. Even the sound of a wolf howling in the distance was enough to fill a heart with terror. But today, the nightmare of the killer wolf is more fiction than fact. So perhaps it's time to bring our wild imaginations to heel, because the big bad wolf really isn't that bad. So it's no wonder then that when it comes to monstrous myths, the wolf really is the most extreme.